This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening. We're calling to order the City Council Rules and Government Relations Committee of September 25th, 2024 meeting at 6:30 p.m. We have two members of the committee, Councilor Gomez and myself. Councilor Terrell is not feeling well this evening. We have several new items on the agenda. Regarding past minutes, I did not receive any from Councilor Terrell. I'm beginning to be a little worried about not having any minutes. And there are several meetings that he hasn't submitted. Any suggestions about how we should best improve? I'm looking to you as a council member and as council president to...
I'll send an email to all the council reminder that they have to submit the minutes as soon as possible.
I know I've spoken with him about it, but as I'm just getting concerned, and I want to be sure I express that. Public speak time. Any member of the public here to speak? I don't see any members of the public here to speak.
How do you want
this evening? We have 4 councilors in the room. You're welcome to speak at the section regarding your section.
Mr. Chairman.
If we suspend the rule?
No, just I will, as a recommendation.
Yeah,
I'll prefer them to talk now in case another councilor show up, and then they will have a quorum, and then there will be an open meeting law violation.
That certainly would be the case should another councilor show up.
So to avoid,
Councilor Peak is left.
Yeah, but
Councilor Terrell won't show up.
Yeah, but to avoid that, you never know if anyone will show up.
Yeah, Councilor Derby hasn't been notified.
Just saying.
Who does that leave here? We got...
Yeah, well, you never know.
You never know. I'm certainly happy to have you speak either way, and I'll leave that to your preference.
I think I'll speak during public speak, and if the time comes around and there's still no quorum, then if you choose to call on me, I'm happy to talk.
Public speak, you have up to 3 minutes.
Oh boy, I better time.
So you're limited tonight.
So I'm here to talk about 2 items. I didn't actually look directly at the agenda. So the first just is that I updated this committee with I had spoken last time about this proposal for Rule 5C, basically to require a sheet to introduce new business similar to what we do with financial appropriations. That would kind of allow that to be read into the record, and I think also more importantly, give the public and other members of the council and municipal stakeholders an idea of what's being proposed. Something I noticed, like even at our last meeting, is we had a new rule being introduced, and I think we had all read the packet, but there was it wasn't clear when we moved it exactly what we were moving. So I think it just helps to have a little bit more explanation. Obviously, it can't be debated, but it provides just some general information for everyone present and watching the meeting exactly what is happening. And I sent you that template that Barbara had helped with. That would appear elsewhere in the packet. I think there was some confusion last time. You won't have this broad language under new business. It will appear elsewhere in the packet, similar to like we do with appropriations now. And then Councilor Peak and I had submitted a recommendation to slightly tweak our order of business for items for immediate consideration, something I've noticed certainly with resolutions, but there's other votes that we take where I think the public may want input. It gets a little confusing when you have general public speak and people kind of end up spilling over past the public hearings. This kind of allows certain votes that we take to occur earlier in the order of business, directly after public hearings, with a separate public speak time for the public, which I think just is a little bit more orderly as well as considerate of members of the public and other people who might show up for certain items, whether that be a resolution or other votes that we take. People might want to show up, if we were to vote on a rule, for instance, which normally would occur during a committee report, that could be requested by, for instance, the chair of rules to be placed for immediate consideration in that meeting, and it places it a little bit higher up, it's a little bit more visible, and then committee reports are really just committee reports, there's no votes being taken there. So it's really just some housekeeping, so to speak, and I think taking into consideration what we sometimes the robust participation that we get from the public and other people who want to participate in certain matters before the council. And I have 19 seconds left, and I'm going to yield my time.
Thank you. Seeing that no one else is here, I think we should feel free to entertain a discussion, including Councilor Zaret, when the time comes. Councilor Denham, have you comments on this matter?
Not on this matter.
Okay. Thank you. Do you concur that there isn't a quorum
Yeah, no.
and we could entertain further discussion with Councilor Zaret at this time? I believe so. So you're proposing changes to adding a Rule 15A?
Let me look at that. Yes, correct. Adding Rule 15A and then amending Rule 5E to reflect those changes.
Right. Rule 15A, the addition would be items for immediate consideration must be filed with the city clerk as such when submitted for inclusion to the agenda. Such items will appear on the agenda to immediately follow public hearings and shall include a period of public comment specific to the item. Items for immediate consideration must comply with all other rules of the city council in regards to requirements for allowance at first reading or following referral to committee. End addition. That the end of the addition to the rules. Appear on the agenda immediately following public hearing, so we would then add the section right after public hearing. Right, what would we call that? Items for immediate consideration, 5B.
Mm-hmm.
That's your proposal.
Correct.
All right, so there's two pieces to this. One would be amending council rules to include 15A, and two, the addition of 5B, items for immediate consideration, going up in the order of the agenda. Plus, we have the detail of the introduction materials. So I would like to deal first with the process and then with the specifics, if we can break it up that way. And the process would be looking at whether it makes sense to file something with the clerk. I think it does. I think it makes sense. I think when we get to the looking at the form itself, as mentioned, I think our city clerk has commented on it and come up with the form, made up the form with input from other counselors, I believe. So I have no problems with either language or process in terms of position on the rules and on the order of business. Councilor Gomez?
I don't have any comment. I like both.
Councilor Zaret?
Um,
Thoughts about process and the language of 15A addition I'm presuming that you don't have any
No, I mean,
further comments on that.
yeah, like
or
I
on-
said, I imagine that, the only question would be, it says it's items for immediate consideration. Oftentimes, as you know, we have items on the agenda that say something like they might just say action required. And so one could also presume to place those under, that same section. Once again, in order to kind of consolidate all the places where we're taking votes and also consolidate places where we're just basically having more of a passive discussion. I guess you could consider an item for action that by definition is for immediate consideration, so it could just be filed as such. The language that I put here is kind of just what flowed by stream of consciousness. I read it a few times, it kind of makes sense to me, I want to make sure it makes sense to you. But yeah, I don't have many more comments beyond what I've put forward here. But the only other thing I'd say, well, are we just talking about the immediate consideration piece right now?
We're speaking about the immediate consideration piece.
Okay, yeah, so that's all I have to say about that.
And the process for making that change, should we decide to do so. Counselor Denham? Thoughts? No comments. Seeing no comments, I think that the process is pretty well defined. The items for immediate this form, is that usable under this?
Yes, if I may.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so these were obviously two separate things. I mean, that was proposed separately, just more to refine kind of the transparency and visibility behind our general process for filing anything. May I see, Mr. Chair, which version you have? Because I think I had amended. Okay, it is, yeah. So there's that little checkbox is your item for immediate consideration, but these are just the form, the Rule 5C form is really for anything that's being filed. And again, I would imagine that it would get read into the record again, similar to what we do for appropriations right now, which also kind of consolidates the language about how we introduce new business. And there's a little checkbox there for immediate consideration. So the clerk would see that and that would get placed on the agenda as such. So that's one piece, kind of one rule, and then which obviously it dovetails to some degree with this other recommendation that if your item is for immediate consideration, here is how that is handled at a meeting in terms of order.
Okay, then we should look at 15A and 5B changes, amending 5E by adding 5B as something that we should feel free, we could make that determination without referring to the form or necessarily referring to it. It could stand on its own.
Correct. The form is a whole other process. That's just that's more as it pertains to introduction of council business.
Sorry, I see both as dealing with many of the same kinds of things. But yes, they are different and could stand on their own. Councilor Gomez, thoughts about whether or not you would be willing to consider moving the addition of 15A?
Again, I think makes sense.
Change in 5B.
Again, I think makes sense, total sense. I do agree with Councilor Sarrett. Sometimes when we were discussing something that the public really want to see the results of the vote, they have to wait until the end of the meeting, and we should do it sooner, so that way we can keep people in our meetings and be part of it. To me, I'm okay with both. I'm okay with Rule 15A and Rule 5E.
I'm okay with it also, as I had said. I think it's a good addition. I think the placement on the program could always be changed by asking to suspend the rules. So that, it's not like we're creating an ordinance that makes it harder to change. Which that requires a majority vote to suspend the rules. So I think that this is a good move. I would entertain such a motion.
So move.
Second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Was that for all of these items?
That was for
including-
this.
Okay, that's for that.
That was for this. The other item is the actual form that
Right.
we had talked about, and amending Rule 5C in the order, the introduction of council business, how we do it,
Mm-hmm.
how, and with the goal being that we could make this more transparent, or transparent in and of itself. I don't know if you can make something more transparent, it either is or it isn't. And I'm not sure, I know I've been upset many times when the public didn't seem to get enough notice about the subject being to be discussed. It wasn't altogether clear. The audience wasn't filled up. This was a subject that folks, I think, would have wanted to have more information on, and they deserve to have information on. So I think that the form as submitted deals with some of that in asking for the 2 or 3 sentence description of the request and attaching any additional information, et cetera. So that leaves that section, I think, addressing the issue of transparency. The rest of it is kind of procedural. We can go over at various aspects of the form. Counselor Zaret, since you introduced, any further comment on this before we discuss?
Yeah, I mean, just that, so I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, we had a conversation about this, basically saying, looking into a rule to basically allow a reading, particularly by the sponsor of business that they were introducing, just to give a synopsis. And I think it got kind of lost a little bit in the concern that, well, if the sponsor's reading it, maybe there's an opportunity for them indirectly kind of promoting or not promoting it. And I actually think you at the time, Counselor Kwasinski, had suggested, well, why don't we just have something that can be read into the record? And the measure ultimately got voted down, but it's still something I've been thinking about, because again, I just think it makes it more clear to people what is being introduced by providing the synopsis, and it also standardizes how new business is introduced. So, yeah, that's I think I've said that a few times, but that's really all.
Yep. The request form, which was developed by Barbara, I'll read sections of it briefly. Date submitted, title of proposal, counselor sponsor or sponsors, which then makes it clear and easily clear who did it. Request is hereby made for consideration of the following. It's broken up into general ordinance amendment, traffic rules and orders amendment, zoning ordinance amendment, which requires for referral to the committee to discuss and will need to come back to the council with a recommendation and subsequent referral to the planning board. That's the process. We don't make zoning ordinance changes without allowing the planning board to comment on it. When it comes back to the council at that point, the city council would vote on it. The council rules amendment section, city council resolution, or other. I like the other category because there certainly are cases where other things will occur. It's a question about a request for immediate attention. Does that mean immediate consideration, or does that mean immediate attention? I'm not quite sure. Please.
I think for the purpose of standardizing language, that should probably read immediate consideration.
I would like that change. Councilor Gomez, I see you shaking your head, nodding your head, not really shaking it, but agreeing. Councilor Denham, no.
Is this an electronic form?
This is not clear whether it would be electronic or not.
I think it should be electronic.
Yeah, like
And we can make that electronic.
fillable
Yeah,
PDF,
we
that's a
can do
great
that.
idea.
We can do that procedurally. I don't think we need necessarily to include it in the rule. I think most everybody should be capable of doing this electronically. But there's the off chance that someone just might prefer a form. So I'm not sure we need to address it as such, as part of the rule itself. We could develop it electronically, and Barbara could have forms available at her desk, I think. So we wouldn't have to put it in there. So request for immediate consideration, yes or no? Gives the chapter and section number to be amended for ordinance or council rules. Again, a short summary, and then has some dates. Now, I'm not sure who necessarily would have to fill in the dates, whether that would have to be done prior to, because Barb's and the clerk has always been helpful in setting any dates, advertising dates, public hearing dates if required, etc. And documentation of the votes in favor or opposition, along with mayoral action. So this almost looks like part of a form to send it along after it's been approved or disapproved. I'm not sure that really belongs with this submission. Councilor Gomez.
Yes, the only issue that I have with this second form is when we create rules, the rules only apply to the councilors, don't apply to the mayor.
Right.
So, and in this one, we are basically telling the mayor that you have to follow our rules and you have to fill it up this application or this form. And in reality, the mayor doesn't have to, because that's a rule. If we want that the mayor to follow, we have to create our ordinance.
Right.
So, so that's why this one is like, I don't know.
It's almost like a
I'm totally
process.
agree with the first one. With the second one, I don't know if I'm 100% in.
Yeah, I think Barb could very well feel free to use the second page
Correct.
as process, but not necessarily include it as part of our rule.
Mhm.
I think that makes sense. So I would, anything else with the form itself? Councilor Denham, do you want to take a quick peek at the form? or-
I'm good, I'm okay.
So without any other additions or subtractions, Councilor Zara?
I just want to voice my agreement that I think the first page is the most relevant in terms of what this is trying to accomplish, and I think to your point, the rest of it could be used as potential models by, say, the clerk or whoever, once it's voted on, but it's not part of the actual rule, if that makes sense.
So we could give that feedback back to Barbara, include this as part of a recommendation to make the change to Rule 5C. Or addition to 5C, how would that fit? Would you see that as an addition to 5C? Like a continuing on, let's see, look at 5C. Sorry. Measures may be received or acted upon unless introduced by a member of the council, wherever the council requests consideration of any measure, the draft language to be considered should be presented. Such draft should be presented along with any additional information or research. Any council measure request shall include a detailed list of objectives and/or requested council action, and all requested drafts or action must be submitted to the council clerk for inclusion at the next meeting. Councilors shall use the, do we refer to the form or put it in?
So we should put it in.
I think we should
Because
put
let
it
me,
in.
let me explain a little bit why is the reason behind this form, because we talked about this a long time ago. And today, almost happened if I didn't step out of the room. Basically, it's to avoid open meeting law violations. So that way, the committee have more guidance about what a councilor is proposing with the cover letter that we have to put in the package when we're proposing something. And this document will guide more the committee to give it an idea exactly what that council was proposing and what they're looking for. In case 5 councilors or more are in the same room, so that will avoid open meeting law violation. And again, the committee will have more guidance about what to do with the item in front of them. Right?
Agreed.
It will provide additional information to the committee.
To the committee.
And
And that include the public, right?
Right,
But
and
at
it
the,
includes
at
the
the, at the end,
public,
is to
yes.
guide better
Yes,
to the committee to avoid open meeting law violation.
that certainly makes sense. I guess this could be added by adding a comma after agenda packet, using the following form. So comma using the following form. Any,
And maybe we call the form, I don't know, 5C form, I don't know. That way
we could label the form,
yeah, that way we really identify the form as
City Council Action Request Form 5C. Comments from anyone? With the changes being comma using the following form and form 5C. And the change to immediate consideration rather than immediate attention. Be prepared to move this forward with a positive recommendation. I'd entertain such a motion.
so move.
Second. Any additional discussion, folks? No additional discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. The motion passes. Thank you for your help.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely.
Have a great night.
Take
Yeah,
care.
same to you.
I'll get this to Barbara. This will be ready to go. We have an additional item. That is Councilor Denham's request to amend Council Rule by regarding a review of the council rules. And she has
I just sent it to you, I don't know if you shared it.
thankfully sent us a copy. Councilor Gomez, do we have access to make you a copy of this?
You can look at this.
I can make a copy, right?
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
just
I don't
take,
know if you'd like
I
to
don't want
take
you to
it
make
with you.
I don't want you to.
Hate,
print it out.
hate paper, but
Yeah, I don't want, that's why I asked you that.
sometimes,
And I apologize, I wasn't trying to, I'm just very sensitive about open meeting law, and so
I guess so.
That's what I think.
That's fine.
I wasn't trying to be dismissive, I'm very sensitive about that right now, so.
That's okay if I open it like this, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, So the original request, right, was to review, if I may, was to review the charter rules, which the council had sent to rules. And then I was in a discussion with our city clerk and council clerk, who has really very, I don't wanna use the word, intimate knowledge of a close working knowledge of the rules, and so really asked her a series of questions about process. And so she reviewed it and provided a lot of feedback, which also appreciated. She also, one of the things that I noticed within there as well was looking at language. There's a lot of he, she changed it to they, to make it more inclusive, as well as just, again, looking at our process, our calendar, and a variety of different items that either have changed or don't pertain anymore. And so she went through with her kind of eye and looked at that to make those changes. Counselor, at the last meeting when we had this discussion, President Gomez had discussed looking at Robert's rules. We have not had that opportunity to kind of connect on that right now, so that is probably another addition, right, so to speak, of how to amend some of these. But this is kind of a working, some working edits right now of kind of the changes from the response of the council clerk to bring the rules up to speed, so to speak, with our actual operation, so.
I had an opportunity to review the document, thank you. Found them to, all the suggestions to be very pertinent and helpful. So I saw it as a pretty thorough way of looking at our rules. I'm not sure Councilor Gomez may wish to consider the matter a bit, and that may make sense in light of incorporating any discussion about Robert's rules into the matter.
I'm sorry, I was reading something. Could you
I'm
repeat
sorry.
that again?
Listen, I fully understand.
No, I
Focusing
just
on
saw here
something.
that is clicking in my brain because I think we should include something else here, but
Okay.
sorry, what was that?
I was just saying, I see this matter as continuing a discussion
Yes.
with the inclusion of the review of Robert's rules, and I believe the pamphlet that you had been looking to pull together, and I know you've been busy, and I know it may not be immediately accessible, but I know you've seen it, and I know it will be helpful to us because you're very good in that regard. So I would be willing to continue discussion on the matter. Is there any comments for this evening that you saw, or shall we hold that in abeyance to the next meeting?
No, I would probably recommend a few extra language and a few things here, especially when it's referral to a committee. The only requirement now is only to put it on the city council agenda and the official city website. I'm always open for and I know it's a little bit more work but they're already been doing it. The bulletin board for the public. Not everybody have access online, and I think we should be inclusive to everybody. And I think that's why I think we should keep doing that, and it's part of one of the thing that I just saw that I think we should keep in mind. Then everybody have access to computers.
What page did you
That's rules
If I may ask.
6E, and the other thing is, and I want to be clear, this is rules for the city council, but the agenda is a city council issue. So look like the deadline for everybody, and that includes the city because everybody have to follow because it's our rules. By Thursday noon, all the department head or the mayor wanna put something on the agenda, they have to follow our rules because it's our agenda. I will put that for the public too. Like in this case, now they have to follow our rules because it's our agenda, right? Besides that, I think everything else look good to me.
Sorry, I was recording your comments regarding municipal building bulletin board
Yes,
and the re-inclusion of that matter.
yes, because I still believe that.
And I hear you, and I am very sensitive to people not having computers. And that's why I was a bit sensitive about having this be an electronic form, which then the public really, who knows if they're gonna, I don't know, maybe, would the public also use the similar form in submitting their petitions? That may be another matter. If there's a petition of 10 individuals. That's they're not part of the council, so we don't have to include them in the rules. That's true. Forget that matter. I think we're covered. So please, if you wouldn't mind summarizing the last thought, where I was distracted, I was focused.
Because I was supposed to reading again.
Well, following,
I remember, but you can do it.
no, go ahead, it's your point, it's your committee.
I'll say part of the language that I saw that I don't remember what was it, is that the deadline to bring new items to the city council agenda, it will be Thursday at noon. Because it's the city council agenda, yes, it's our rule, but everybody have to follow, including the mayor and the department head, because it's our agenda. If it is not by Thursday on time, it's not gonna be on the agenda. At least it's being amended by the city council president, that will be allowed. But in this case, and I said this because I said about the form, right? The rules only apply for the city councilors.
So the rule applies to the city council, but the policy could still be in place.
And this one, because it's a city council business, city council agenda, if anyone in the department head or the mayor wanna be in our agenda, has to follow our rules to put it by Thursday noon. So the mayor cannot.
I see it as a this is the policy of I wouldn't necessarily think to call it a rule, but you have to follow our policy of submitting everything to the clerk. If we call it a rule, well, we're not subject to the rule.
I know, but it's on rule, that's why.
But in rules, all matters shall be submitted, and let that be interpreted how it may by the department heads or the mayor. Because in the end, the matter is, you gotta get the darn things in by noon on Thursday.
Yes.
And that's what matters. Otherwise,
Have to be amended
whether
by
it
the
be
mayor.
our policy or our rule, it's not gonna be included unless amended by the approval of the council president.
Correct.
Good.
Everything else look fine. But we can continue this discussion.
Yeah. I thought that was a nice piece. Barb worked hard on that. Is there anyone else to?
No, we had talked about it, and
Congratulate-
so and she had, I think this is so second nature to her, so when you said she worked hard on it, I was like, was it hard, or she just like,
she just did it.
it's kind of second
She
nature,
said,
like, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Cause she did say like, there's been a lot of things I've been thinking about since this conversation has started, right? So I think that she's been really reflective on it, and I think that she's provided some good insight, and I think this is, given that she needs to follow a particular process, for each meeting, each month, whatever. I think that it just became like, these are the things that I would change, or this is where I see inconsistencies. And so I think that was really appreciated, like, cause she didn't have to do it, and she pulled me aside and said, this is actually really important. I think that we need to be doing this more often. because there are times change, councils change, and so to be able to kind of keep up to speed with the changes of council and how it alters its process, et cetera. So I think that was something that she quite willingly gave her time to be able to say, this is what I see.
It's not necessarily part of her job, but it kind of is because she's knowledgeable. I want to thank you for bringing the matter forward and for working this through to the point where we have something that's presented to us that has lots of changes, and we're going to incorporate these within, or incorporate the Robert's rules into a review of our rules.
Mhm.
And hopefully we'll be able, do you think it might be possible to get something?
In 2 weeks? Okay.
Well,
Because we have a meeting next Wednesday, and the following Wednesday we can have a meeting.
we could have a meeting then, but it would be nice to be able to review
I'll just send
the
you some.
pamphlet of Roberts. You can send us the pamphlet itself, or okay, because I know I won't read it the night before,
Okay.
but maybe a few nights before, and that I think was
You
part
gonna
of.
put it under your pillow and sleep on it?
Well, that's part of my comment about the hours that we work is, I'm not, we discussed this in a different meeting before the public, but these are some of the things that bounce around in your head. As Councilor Denneman said, at 4:00 in the morning, I was considering something, and it maybe woke me up. That happens. Good. Any further discussion this evening? Any other items that we should be putting? I think it's safe to say that I will be writing a letter to the mayor asking for copies of all the contracts that we have. It's not a rule change, it's not an ordinance, but looking for copies of the contracts that the city has for interagencies and agreements. Because we are the Rules and Government Relations Committee, and if there's a contract with Westhampton to discuss ambulance service, we should at least be aware of, the council should be aware of that agreement. And there are other multiple agreements, mutual aid agreements and other agreements with other communities. Sometimes there's a grant that comes up. I think we should at least know what we have and have access to it. And Barb maybe should hold a copy. So anyway, that being said, I wanted to prepare you to let you know I'd be writing that letter, and I'd be happy to entertain any thoughts about that should you have more. Comments? Okay. I think that was okay to say because it's informing you of something that is coming, not of any particular change to our system. It's just gathering information. Sorry, we gotta think of those things when we think of open meeting law all the time.
I know, that's why I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be a part of this conversation.
Very good. I'd be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn, should that be the case. Second, all those in favor? Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.